Don't even ask. I don't even want to go into why we're building this late. But I have two builds I have to do, one of which needs to be shipped out tomorrow. It's been a hell of a day. So, tonight, well, first of all, welcome to the Late Night Build Show. I'm your host, Ben Estrino, also going to be building the PC today. We got a couple of PCs, one's going out tomorrow, so that's why we're doing this late build stream. Didn't get all the parts here until late, so unfortunately, schedule forced us to build this late, and I promised I would stream this. So, we are going to be streaming this one, even though it's late. I apologize if it bothered anybody's sleep schedule with my notifications. But to start it off, we're going to be starting with the i5 13600K. This is actually our Enforcer on the website, so if you're interested in this build, you can always check it out over on the website. It's the Enforcer, and I forgot to turn the music down. So the Enforcer. Again, I apologize for the late notifications and just realized my music wasn't turned down for the intro, but welcome to the Late Night Build Show. I'm your host, Ben Estrino, and this is the Enforcer that we're building tonight. And again, we're going to be building this so late. Hey, what's up, Mohammed? How's it going? We're building so late because this build is supposed to go out tomorrow, so we need to ship this tomorrow. We just didn't get all the parts in until late today. Thanks for stopping in, Mohammed. I appreciate you. So running through this build, if you're interested, this is the Enforcer on our website. But this is for a customer that we have out in Florida that we're going to be shipping to tomorrow. But this is the Intel i5 13600K. It's an LGA 1700. It's got, what is it, 14 cores. The i5, the 13600, and the 13400 are very different, because the 13400 still only has, I believe it's like 6 cores, or 8, 6 or 8, and the 13600K has 14 cores. So this is the better or best version of the i5 that you could possibly get. So if you're going with an i5, you can spare a few bucks. The i5 13600K is going to be the option that you want. It's basically like a last gen i7, but doesn't cost as much as like a 13700K, which is like $300, 300 plus. So it's a little bit cheaper, and you can stream on this CPU. This CPU you can stream on and game. It is a powerful CPU, and I highly recommend it if you're trying to build like a cheap streaming rig. This is the CPU you want to start with, and then you can upgrade to an i7 or an i9 later. So it's a great platform to start on. Anyway, i5 13600K has got the 14 cores, 20 threads, 5.1 gigahertz, max turbo. We also have the LGA 1700 bracket by Thermal Right. We always use these anytime we're using LGA 1700. And then we are putting that on a Z790 Tomahawk Wi-Fi motherboard, which is an MSI product. It's a great board. Again, another great product by MSI. Let's see here. And then we have the MSI Ventus 3X RTX 4070 with that's going to be powered by an 850 watt MSI Gold MSI power supply, 80 plus gold. It's fully modular. It's also PCIe 5.0 and 3.0. How much does this all cost? This build on our website is $2,254.99. That's after I think with shipping or something. But this is a really nice build. So we also have a 2 terabyte M.2 Gen 4 SSD, so this is going to make it super fast and snappy. All those load times for your games are going to be super fast, being the Gen 4 SSD. And then we're also running DDR5 RAM, which is 32 gigs at 6,000 megahertz. And this is a kit by Team Group, which is the T-Force Delta kit, addressable RGB. And this whole setup, the theme is black. We're going to be cooling the CPU with an LS720 by Deepcool. This is a 360 millimeter AIO liquid cooler. So it's got 3 120 millimeter fans on there, and it's got the RGB that all synced up. Man, this is way out of my range. Well, I've got more than that on the website. So if you check out the website, I've got PCs starting at $523, and they go all the way up to, you know, the max builds, the crazy builds, and then any type of custom open loop cooling. I do that as well, but that's all just customized. I don't have any like pre-built options on the websites for any open loop custom water cooling. So that's all just done. Because really, when we're getting into that, it's more custom, and I want to customize it to what you want. I got $90. What can we do with that? $90 isn't going to get you very far within the gaming PC industry. $90 will get you, you know, your CPU at least. It'll get you a decent CPU, but then you need the rest of the computer. But I mean, on a serious note, if you're on a budget, you could do, and I've seen a lot of people do these, and I actually used to do these way back when I was known as Budget Builder Ben, way back in the day. But it was like a Dell Optiplex, and just upgrade that with an SSD and a graphics card, and it would make a pretty decent, you know, gaming PC for relatively cheap, because you could find a Dell Optiplex for like $50. And then at the time anyway, graphics cards, you could find like an RX 560 or something for like $30 or $40, and then an SSD was like $20, and you would have a pretty snappy little PC that would play pretty much any game you wanted at that time. This is again like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5. I don't even remember when it was. It was a long time ago, but it was a cheap way to get into PC gaming without spending like more than $250. That was always my recommendation for anybody that had like super tight cash. You know, they were just, you know, it was tight. And I understand it. I get it. I don't try to like tell people, hey, you gotta buy this. This is the best. No, we'll work with your budget. So if you got a budget, I try to work with it, but $90 is a little bit too low. Really, honestly, I think the lowest I can work with is like 500-ish. That's where I start to say, you might want to try to find something new, anything lower than that, or used, anything lower than that. So, but all of our rigs that we build here do have a warranty, so we back everything up. Like for example, this one has a 1-year warranty, replacement parts, and lifetime support. So we back all of our builds. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this build, because it is late. I did not want to be building this late, but didn't really have a choice, because I need to get this PC shipped tomorrow. I have UPS showing up tomorrow, so gotta have it ready. We're gonna need the motherboard to get started, so I'm gonna remove some of these parts off the table, and we'll get started with this build. It's gonna be about an hour-ish, maybe more. I have a laptop with an RTX 2060. It's about 2 years old, and it's time for an upgrade. It's just I don't got the cash. Well, the RTX 2060, even though it's a mobile chip, is actually not bad. It'll still work for most games. Now, the problem you are probably having in a laptop is you're probably experiencing a lot of thermal throttling, especially if it's been a couple of years. And what that is thermal throttling is where the parts get too hot, and then they slow themselves down to actually protect themselves from overheating and causing damage. And so what that does, you can see your FPS probably dropping like crazy. Especially after you turn on a game, it probably works maybe for the first few minutes, and then it probably slows down to just trash. And if that's happening, that's called thermal throttling, and that's actually very fixable. If you wanted to bring me your laptop, we could do what we call a thermal paste repaste, and you might need new pads depending on what type of laptop and card it is. So it's usually like $50 to do something like that for us. And then it will allow it so that it can cool better again, like it was brand new. But thermal paste over time degrades, and that's the problem with a lot of laptops, and it happens in desktops too. So it's not just a laptop thing. It's just it happens a lot faster in laptops because they're smaller, and they can't get rid of the heat as well or effectively as desktops. But all right, so this is our Z790 Tomahawk. It's an excellent motherboard. These things come with a lot of extra accessories as well, which is cool. I didn't really talk about the case that we're building in today as well. So we're actually building in a Leon Lee Landcool 216, and what I really like about that case, I could show you when I pull it out of the box here when we get to that, but it sports the 360mm AIO, and then it also has it included two 160mm fans, PWM, and they're quality fans in there, as well as a 140mm fan on the rear. So they're really decent fans for the price. I think it's like $106 case. It's a great little case to work with. Especially the fact that it sports the 360mm AIO on the top, which is what I prefer. So that way it disperses the heat out of the top as exhaust, rather than on the front, dumping the heat back into the case. What I was told by my friend is that it has a virus in the motherboard. There's no such thing. And it stopped working to the point every time I would turn it on, it would just shut it off in like a few minutes after boot. There's no such thing as a virus in the motherboard. I can tell you that right now. But if you turn it on, it would shut off like in a few minutes after boot. It always gives you a blue screen. So that could be a problem with the motherboard, kind of like what your friend's saying, but it's definitely not a virus. There's no, very rare. That would be more like a firmware virus or malicious firmware, and that would require somebody actually plugging something into your computer and flashing your BIOS. That would be the only way that could happen. It can't be downloaded from the internet to your motherboard. It could, but very hard to do and very rare that anything like that would happen. So what could be happening with your laptop, if it's blue screening and shutting itself after a few minutes, shutting off after a few minutes, the shutting off could actually be a sign of overheating if it's just shutting off. Or it could be a motherboard issue. But if you do have it on and it's hitting a blue screen, it could be a memory issue. It could be just a corrupt version of Windows installation. So try reinstalling Windows, which is free for you to do if you ever wanted to try it. You just got to get Windows onto a USB stick, the Windows installation media on a bootable USB stick, and then just reinstall Windows and see if that fixes the problem. If it does, then it was just a Windows corrupt installation or a corrupt update or something. But but if it continues, then it could be a memory issue, which is, again, you could replace the RAM in a laptop, or it could be a motherboard problem, a physical problem. And that's the problem. Again, laptops are small. They can't disperse the heat, and this is what I hate about gaming laptops, is they pack all these big components that are using a lot of power, creating a lot of heat into a very small tight area, and there's just not enough space to disperse the heat, and so that makes it so that the parts don't last as long, and you lose a lot of performance when it gets too hot. You'll most likely come to your shop and let you work with my laptop. Yeah, just let me know when you want to come by, and we could take a look at it. But my services are on the website, so if you look up the website, just look at services and then kind of something in there. Like a Windows reinstall is like $50 or something, but that also includes drivers and all the other stuff behind it, so not just the Windows, if you want us to do that. And I can even try it here on the spot for you. You just gotta let me know when you're coming so we can plan it ahead. Alright, let's get the CPU in here. So again, this is the i5-13600K. We're going to be putting this thing in here, and then we're going to remove the stock brackets so that we can put our Thermalright LGA 1700 contact plate in. The reason why we're going to use a contact plate is so that the CPU doesn't. The CPUs are getting bigger and bigger as we. I know technology keeps getting bigger, not smaller, but the CPU is getting a little bit bigger. This contact plate helps the surface of the CPU stay flat so that there's more contact or better contact from the cooler. And in turn, that makes it cooler. So we get usually about 5 to 10 degree difference with this little $10 bracket. So anytime you're working with LGA 1700, it is always very good to invest in the little $10 bracket. Now I'm going to put the CPU in first, just so that it protects those pins on the motherboard, because the last thing we want to do is damage those pins. And this is that bracket that I was talking about. That's what we're installing. So I'm going to remove these stock brackets. I will check it out. Awesome. So I'm just going to unscrew these. And then we're just going to drop this contact plate right over that and then reuse these screws. Now, Gamers Nexus actually did a very good video about the installation process for these. So if you don't know how to install one of these and you want to learn, you could go check out Gamer Nexus's video, which is very informative about why you use one of these and how to properly install one. And I highly recommend watching that before you try to install one of these. Kind of went out of order there, but that's all right. Yeah, I haven't built this late in a while. Usually I'm ready for bed. Actually, we want that in there too. So yeah, the PC world is pretty crazy right now. And it's actually been really busy with builds, which has been nice. Alright, so now I'm going to get the DDR5, 32 gigs of DDR5, 6000 megahertz RAM installed. And this is, again, the T-Force Delta addressable RGB by Team Group. This packaging is always a pain in the butt to open. Alright, so that's 32 gigs. I believe this is CL30. Yes, this is CL30. So we actually got better timing RAM than what we originally had posted for this, which I think was 36 for this build. Because Team Group had a really good deal on this stuff. Alright, so a 2TB M.2 Gen 4 by Silicon Power. This is the UD90 that's going in here. We have a heat spreader. And that helps passively cool the SSD by transferring the heat off the SSD and onto the heat spreader. Alright, so we got our SSD installed. Now we're going to go get the brackets for the LGA 1700 for the cooler and get those installed. Because I really don't want to do that when it's in the case. Would prefer to try to do it outside of the case. Once it's in the case, it gets to be a little bit more difficult. Depending on where the case back punch plate is, or hole is. Most of them are getting better about that, but I've ran into too many issues back in the day where things just didn't line up. And I just do it out of the case. So we'll get the cooler opened up here and get those, get that hardware out. So this is what I was after, this box of hardware for the cooler. And this is our bracket, so we're going to push these pegs all the way out for LGA 1700. Then make sure the logo is facing up the right way. Slide those pegs into the holes. And then we're going to get the little standoff peg things that go over that, which should be in here. And that one, this is AMD, so we don't need that. So I'm going to shove that back in the bag and put that over here, since we don't need that one. We need this one. Need these, need this, 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 and this. The rest of these we don't need. Those are for different Intel sockets. Because Intel has to be special and have 500 different sockets. So these little plastic standoffs, I'll hold these pegs on to the motherboard while we put it in. The motherboard is now ready to go in the case, so we're going to go ahead and get the case out. I'm going to set the motherboard over here, get the case. Okay. Ooh. Sorry, I bumped the camera stand. Hopefully you guys don't get wheezy. Looks like there's a little rub mark here or something from the manufacturer. Oh, it's like an adhesive left over from something. Probably from the factory. I always hate it when I see marks on a case. That comes out. I'll just have to rub that out. Alright, so pull the glass panel off. Pull the rear panel off. Then we're going to remove the top panel because we got to put a cooler here anyway. Then we'll spin her around and locate our hardware kit. which is actually in the bag. You can get this broken out, freed up. Right in this box here. I found you. Hardware kit. And make sure there's no more peel-offs on the motherboard that we missed. Nothing. And then we drop this board in there. Get our screws to mount the motherboard opened up out of its little package. And we screw down 9 screws. Or we secure the motherboard with 9 screws. All right, so now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and get some of these cables plugged in from the case as much as we can, as well as anything up here at the top, because once we have the cooler in, it's going to be a pain in the butt to get to the top of the board. These are the radiator fans and RGB connections that I'm going to get plugged in right now. These cables will be pretty well covered up with that AIO. You won't be seeing much of these anyway. And then we want to, we'll have a pump that we'll have to plug in right here, but that's when we get that blocked. And it's going to be a bit before we get to that point. So I guess the EPS cables, and then we'll do the case cables. So that's one EPS. GPU, 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 2 EPS. And the tabs are on the top. We got some cable combs that we're going to install on these. Usually we just do a couple on the EPS cables here because they're pretty well tucked away, usually behind the cooler anyway. There's not much you'll see of these outside of maybe just a little piece of them. So I'll pull those through, get it plugged in. There's one. And we need 2 more combs. And 2. The 2 EPS cables installed, which is what we want. And really the only thing left on the top is our pump. We have ARGB down here, right? Yes. So we got USB 3.0, which is probably gonna run up here. Let's see. For sure. USB-C, I'm sorry. And then our USB 3.0 is right here, which is also going to run up here. We'll just stick those in there, and our power button and HDMI, or I'm sorry, audio. HD audio, not HDMI. Sorry guys, it's getting late for me. And I have CRS. Can't remember shit. And there is a PWM fan connection. That's for the 2 front fans and the rear, which is on this hub up here. And an addressable RGB, which is also servicing this hub here. We want those to be able to sync to the motherboard as well. So we're going to run these towards the bottom here. And I know for sure there's an RGB connection down here, but I don't know where the PWM fan connection option is here. Definitely one over here. So we'll flip it. But I think I'm gonna go here. Perfecto. And then our JFP1, which is our front panel connector, which looks like it has a power button and a reset button. And then a USB-C, which only plugs in one way. And then USB 3.0. Front panel USB 3.0. And then our addressable RGB, which is going back to that hub on the back, servicing the hub. It'll sync up any RGB items on that hub with the motherboard so that the MSI Mystic Lite can run it from the software. And then our front panel HD audio. So that is all of that. We may as well get the 24-pin extension cable here sleeved. Just need a couple of cable combs, but may as well just do that because we're sitting here. And I love cable combs so much, as everybody already knows. So get it out of the way, get it done. Cable combs are cool though, they add a cool aesthetic to the cables. Something that used to be notoriously just ugly AF back in the day with PCs. So it's kind of cool that, you know, the idea came about to, hey, let's make the cables cool. Let's make them look good. It used to be just ketchup mustard and just always be in the way. Usually if you built a PC and you didn't have cables running into your fans all the time, then you're in good shape. But that was way back in the day. Alright, one more comb. I like to put 3 on the 24 pin. Usually that's good enough. You don't usually need more than that unless it's a long run on the front side. Alright, so we'll shove that through the hole here. And then pull that around. Get her plugged in. So it looks nice and fancy. We got a gray kind of black theme going here, if you haven't noticed. Alright, so now it's pretty much go time with the cooler, so let's get started on that. So it's going to be installed like so. That means all the cables from the fans we want on this side, which if I lay it down, I'm going to lay it down like so. Now I want all the cables on my side. Facing me. The cables. And what's nice about this cooler, the LS720, which they make 2 of them. They make 2 versions of this. This is the LS720. Then they also make the LS720 SE. The 720... without the SE, has the fans, the FC120 fans that are daisy chainable. This minimizes a shit ton of extra cables in your case. Now, if you buy an SE version of this cooler, you will have that shit ton of cables. There's 2 cables coming off of each fan. Whereas I only have 1, and it's daisy chain. So this is a much cleaner way to do your build. And it's only a few more dollars. Believe it or not. Alright, so we got all those plugged in. We just need the screws. And then we can mount this bad boy. And move on to the more exciting stuff. Huh. Yeah, I'm glad I put those on before we put that in the case. I'll tell you that. I'm just going to drop these screws in here to get started. So that they're all lined up, ready to go. I believe in doing things in a process because your muscle memory. Then we're going to find the hole and tighten these down. These fans also have some really nice rubber corners, which help cut down on vibrations. Especially when the fans ramp up. These things can go up to like 2,000 RPM. These FC120s. but they can be pretty fast, and they move a lot of air. They're really nice fans. I've really grown to like them a lot. Deep Cool has been a favorite brand of mine for a long time. I like some of their new cases too, Deep Cool. Thinking about putting together a couple of pre-build options with those cases. The ones that they showed at their last event, specifically. I just need to know what kind of availability they have for them. That way we can get them. Alright. Pull that through, but this one wants to fight me. Wants to argue about where it's going. No, I need you to go in that hole, dude. Oh, not that hole, this one. Thank you. Thank you for your cooperation. Oh, and then these cables want to be in the way. Alright. Now that we got that kind of debacle undebaculated, let's start a new debacle. I'll kind of start this screw. I'm not going to tighten it all the way down, because these things are notorious. And this bracket actually comes out of the case for awareness. But for me, it's just saving time without taking the bracket out. But you could mount this cooler to the bracket and then mount the bracket to the case, which is a lot easier when you haven't done a lot of these before. But if you've done a lot of them, for me, it saves me time not take that bracket out. So, a couple less screws to deal with. I've done quite a few of these AIOs in my lifetime, so shortcuts. Alright, so now I can pretty much just start tightening these screws down because we know it's lined up. Couple more screws. All right, so now that we've got the AIO radiator installed, let's stuff some of these cables back up there. Go on, get up there. You don't belong down here. But see what I mean by the EPS cables are kind of hard to see once the cooler's on. It's no big deal, but still adds a little bit of flavor there, right? Alright, I need a paper towel. So we're going to be removing the pre-applied thermal paste that Deep Cool has here. Don't really use their stuff, unfortunately. It's probably okay stuff, but I prefer to use the Thermal Grizzly on all of our builds. So I'm just going to remove this. Wipe it down. Set that down. And get our brackets and screws. Put these brackets on. Paste it up. Mount it. Move on. Alright. Thermal paste time. Again, we use Thermal Grizzly, because that's the stuff. Kind of like a dotted X pattern. But alright, after that we're just going to put this on, block it. Then we're going to use these little thumb nuts. And I'm not tightening them down all the way, I'm just getting them started. Then we're going to just go around and balance it. Because while you're tightening this cooler down, you're also applying pressure to the pins. So we want to do that evenly, or as evenly as possible. So I'll just go around a couple times. Until I'm satisfied with how tight it is. And then we'll loosen these, or undo these twist ties, which usually I do before I get them in here. But one of these is for RGB and the other one is for the pump. That goes to the pump header on the motherboard, which is right next to the CPU header up there at the top. So I'm going to actually run both these cables up through the top. After I straighten them out a little bit. And our pump goes right there. Very bad spot for a pump header. MSI. FYI. Hard to deal with after you get an AIO in here and the RAM. Alright, then this is going to go towards the back. If I can hopefully grab it. go. We got it. Took a little bit of finagling. And then I'm going to put a couple of zip ties on there, make it look all fancy. Just so it looks clean and not a disarrayed mess of wire. And there we go. That's about as clean as you're going to get that. That'll get cleaned up a little bit more once we have some cable management on the back side. But really, we're ready to just drop the graphics card in here and move on to the power supply. Let's open up these slots for the GPU. And actually, before we do that, we do have a GPU bracket that I want to use for this build. And this is a Leon Lee GPU bracket. It's a cool design. It helps really hold the back of the card, and it's kind of hidden away. Actually forgot about this when I installed the motherboard, or else I would have put this in right away. It does, however, cover one of the M.2 slots, so you will have to take this off if you ever have to take this heat spreader off at an M.2 drive. But it's discreet. As you can see, all it is a bracket, and then you'll have a little L bracket here that holds the card. We'll put that on after we get the graphics card out here. And what that does is help provide support in that back side of the card. So it takes a little bit of the weight off of the PCIe slot. And there is our RTX 4070. This will be shipped uninstalled for awareness, so when you receive this PC, you will have to reinstall this card. It'll be in the internal packaging inside the case. You just pull it out of the packaging and do exactly what I'm going to do right now, which is just drop it into the slot. Once it's slotted, you have two screws, one here, and then you'll have a power cord here that you just plug in, and then you're good to go. There's nothing else you need to do after that. This bracket will already be there and ready to go for you. Hmm. All right. That is ready to go. Just wanted to make sure the weight would hold it. Alright, graphics card installed outside of the power cord, which you will have sitting here ready to go. But it would look like this guy. And all it does is clip facing down, or I'm sorry, clip facing up. Plug directly into the card. And then you would be done. So that would be the process for installing the card once you receive it. Alright, I'm going to put these cable combs on here for this power cord right now. Like so. And we are ready to move on to the power supply. And then we do a bit of cable management on the backside. Then we fire it up and see what happens, you know? See if we built it right. This is a MSI 850 watt gold power supply. A very nice power supply because it has the PCIe 5.0 already built into it, as well as ATX 3.0 ready. Which means if you get into a bigger RTX 4000 series card, it already has that 16-pin 600 watt cable ready to go for those cards. So it makes any type of future upgrade really easy. But with those cards, you really don't want to have too many fail points or failure points, because the more failure points you have, the higher chance it's going to melt, like the NVIDIA melting issues that we've seen. So I always try to go with a PCIe 5.0 power supply now. And I'm going to have all the cables plugged into the power supply, even though it's fully modular. That way none of the cables will get lost. I've had a lot of people lose their cables, unfortunately, in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in all of these cables. That one slipped. You were almost cool, Ben. Almost. It's another PCIe cable. They have one extra because you have the option of either running 2 EPS cables or 3 PCIe cables on this power supply, and we're going to be running 2 EPS cables. And then this is our 24 pin. Alright, ready to go in. So we're just going to slide some of these cables out of the way and slide the power supply into place, right? Not a backdoor power supply, so it should just go right on in. Why are you fighting? Come on now. Work with me. There we go. Got it in. Just gotta put 4 screws on the backside to hold her in place. Secure it. Right on. Alright, so now we are ready to cable manage. First off, we have our EPS cables which run up and over here. We know exactly where those are right now, so let's go ahead and tackle that. These are what power the CPU directly, or what ends up powering the CPU anyway. In this case, it has some really nice cable management. So we're going to utilize that to its fullest, like so. And so. We have one PCIe cable being utilized here, so it's going to be this guy. That's for the RTX 4070. That's what's powering the 4070. Look at that plugged in. And then I'll tuck this guy in down here. Out of the way. And then our 24 pin, the big boy, what powers the motherboard. So we're going to be grabbing this guy and plugging it in here. And then really all we got to do is clean up some of these cables here. Well, this one goes actually here. And this one goes to this one in a less disorganized fashion, preferably. So that way if the pump ever has to come out, we have all this extension on it. And then it looks like we do have to get a SATA cable to this connection here. So I'm gonna probably undo this little twist tie and redo it with some zip ties just to make it look nice. Should you buy a pre-built for your first PC? Well, sorry I didn't see when that came through. Probably about a minute ago. And I've been checking the chat. I mean, it really depends. This is one of our pre-built options on our website. It's called the Enforcer. But if you want like something super fast, as in shipped fast, I mean, we have express ship, we have options that are already built. What's your budget, I guess? Let's start with that. What's your budget? And then we could kind of go from there. That's usually what I start with, is the budget and kind of what you're doing or planning to do with the PC. That usually gives me the best idea. Oh, damn it. Did I unplug anything else? $1,300 as your budget. What are you planning to do with the PC? Are you just gaming? If it's just gaming, I mean, $1,300 to get you a really nice PC right now. Especially with the prices on parts dropping like crazy. Like, I'm talking, you could probably do like a, you could probably do a 3070 build right now in that price range. With like a 12th gen i7 maybe, or an 12th gen i5. But I mean, take a look at our website. We have a couple of pretty good builds. We have a 13th gen i5 or i3 build with what would be the RTX 4060. I know it says 3060 on there, but it's actually the 4060 now, I believe, on that build. because we had that listed well before the 4060 was out. Never got changed on the website yet. That's just an example. I actually need this further down. And I already zipped it. Why is this being such a pain in the butt? We'll shift you that way then. Maybe you'll be happy. Probably not. This cable is never going to be happy, I don't think. What does it look like on the front? Blah. Looks stupid. And as long as it's going to stay, I'll be happy with that. Well, you actually described what I was looking at that price. 1440, 140 plus. Yeah, I'd say like that i7 or i5 12th gen. Micro Center actually has a really good deal on an i7 12700K right now, where you could get a Z690 motherboard, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM. The motherboard is a D4 motherboard, and an i7 12700K for 350 bucks. If you could land that deal, that'll really help the CPU. But after that, a 3070 Ti in that price range you could do. I mean, it's a decent budget. I mean, you could build a nice PC, but if you want a quote from us, like, hey, I got 1,300 bucks, what can you do? I could throw together a estimate for you and send it over. But that's what I do. I do that literally all day. I look at parts, I put together estimates, and send them out. That's most of my day. People come to me with random budgets. I had somebody come to me with like a $450 budget, and we made that happen. It was a local customer, so he saved by not having to have it shipped. But really good at doing that. Pretty much finding the best bang for your buck. Gotten really good at that. And the prices on parts keep changing, so you just got to keep your eyes open. And a lot of pre-build companies are still charging higher prices on their parts because they bought the parts before the price change. And so now they're trying to recoup some of their money still. So even though the parts and prices may have changed, that may not reflect on your existing build. $450 for gaming? Yes, sir. We ended up doing a Ryzen 3 4100. There was a AM4 CPU on a B450 motherboard. So that was like $63 and a $80, $89 motherboard. 16 gigs of RAM, which was $29. I think we squeezed in a 1 terabyte M.2 SSD. And then we did have to go, sadly, on the graphics card, an RX 580 8 gigabyte. But it was, I mean, even the 580 today, it'll deliver 60 to 80 FPS on most titles from low to medium settings in 1080p. And, you know, higher FPS on like Fortnite. You could still do 140 FPS on Fortnite and Rocket League and things like that. So a lot of esports titles run really well on that PC. Just, you know, limited. You can't really stream on it. Upgrading is obviously going to be more expensive. That's actually impressive. Yeah. It was a kid that worked all summer at his dad's barber shop, and he saved up, and I told him once he gets to around $500, come see me, and I could put something together for him. And then he came to me with $450, and that's what we ended up with. So it was actually a really nice little PC in a Montec Air 100 case, which is like 69 bucks, 59 or 69 bucks. It was in white too, so that made it even more difficult, with a 4 heat pipe tower air cooler, so it wasn't just a stock air cooler. The cooler was by Thermalright. It was like 17 or 18 bucks. It wasn't bad. It's actually impressive. I told you I do this all day. All right, so we're actually, oops, forgot to clip some of these. We're actually ready to plug this bad boy in and fire it up and see what it looks like. But this one is actually called our Enforcer on the website. So if you're on our website and you're looking, this is the Enforcer. The 2023 version / updated version of 2023. It's just a different case. So it supports a 360mm AIO. Because the i5's got a little bigger. This is a i5 13600K and an RTX 4070 with an 850 watt gold power supply. 32 gigs of DDR5 on a Z790 motherboard. So it's a very, very powerful rig to start off with, but gives you a huge advantage for upgrades, because you have the ability to upgrade literally all the way up to an i9 with the VRMs on this board. You can go to an i9 no problem. So it's a great gaming / streaming starter if you are looking to do that. And it's going to run very well in 1440p 2K. And they can also dabble in 4K on this PC. So, really good horsepower out of the gate. Really good, excellent upgrade path on this PC. And you also have a significant advantage when you upgrade, because you have the cooling and the case with the room, the availability to put the big parts in there. You're not going to get stuck and limited to the size of your case. That little rub mark on this case bothers the hell out of me. Let's see if we have another one, another panel. All right, let's fire this bad boy up and see what she looks like. And I'll get you guys a side view of the PC once I get it plugged in here. Capture card should pick this one up too, because of the BIOS resolution. The BIOS resolution should be high enough so that the capture card picks it up. All right. Time for a side view. Where'd my keyboard go? Does 4K gaming at 240 FPS exist? Yes, but only on certain titles. Like your esport titles, yes. But if you're trying to do it with Call of Duty, very difficult. You could probably do it with a 4080, 4090. If you change some of the settings, like for example, disable ray tracing, you could probably get 4K 240 on most titles. But that's with like a 4080, 4090, maybe a 7900 XTX, like top tier card. So let's go side view. You guys ready to see this bad boy? Hear a lot of air in that AIO. Moving around, a lot of bubbles. And this is DDR5 training. It's very normal to shut off on itself like that during the first startup. And then this is a MSI board, so it likes to run all of the PWM fans for some reason at like max speed. And oh look, our capture card did start capturing again on the higher resolution. We're going to select water cooler, but we are going to be doing a BIOS update anyway, so I'm not really going to do anything here in the BIOS right now. I'm going to get our Windows 11 plugged in. Start that installation process really quick, and then we'll move it over to the next bench and start on the next build. This thing can move air, as you can see. All right, so we'll get this Windows installation completed here, and then we'll move this over to the bench behind us really quick, and then we'll start on build number 2 for the night. We've got 2 builds. This is the first one that we've just completed successfully. Yay! No problems. And then we'll move on to the next build. This one's got to get drivers, BIOS updates. XMP needs to be enabled. And then I think we do a couple other things in the BIOS, like DDR5 training times, so it speeds up the boot process, and a couple other things. But and then we have to go through what we call a battle tested phase, is which we run a bunch of benchmarks on it, make sure it's cooling where it should be, performing where it should be, and then we package it up and ship it. So it's got a long night. This one actually goes out tomorrow. The next build is a semi-budget build. All right, so let's shut her down and get her on the other bench over there, and then we'll start the other rig. Build number 2. Let's go. We're in for the long night. Not built in this case before. I don't know what I'm going to actually need here. It was the first time for me building in this case that we're going to be building in. But it is a budget build with a white theme. So we've got a Ryzen 5 3600 B550M DS3H AC, so it's got the Wi-Fi built into it. We've got a white Thermalright tower air cooler, 16 gigs of DDR4, 3200 RAM, 1 terabyte M.2. This is actually Gen 4. Remember, 3600 actually supports PCIe Gen 4, and then the AMD Radeon RX 6500 XT. This thing works better on PCIe 4.0 than it does on PCIe 3.0. We have PCIe 4.0 support with the 3600 on a B550, so this should run very well. For example, Fortnite should be running at 150 plus FPS, which is, I don't know what games they're planning on using exactly, but this was the budget. This is what we came up with, and I believe it was more like Rocket League, Fortnite type games. More esports titles than anything, I remember, if I remember correctly. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this build. And then we've got some white cables with a 500 watt power supply in the Cougar case. Cougar's a brand that I actually used way back in the day, and I haven't used in a while, so kind of excited to build in the case because it's been a while since I've touched a Cougar case. So this is the version of the AMD 3600 that comes without a cooler. We're not going to be using that cooler anyway, so there's no point in buying it. A little bit cheaper. Then we have 16 gigs of DDR4, 3200, a 1 terabyte M.2 Gen 4 SSD. Good. Go. So we got the SSD and the RAM installed and the CPU. So let's get the heatsink installed. Nice cool looking white cooler. This is the mounting brackets, mounting kit for this cooler. We just have to remove the clips. We're going to use the back plate originally from the motherboard. Peel that off, and then we're going to use our thermal grizzly. Thermal paste, like always. It didn't come out as gracefully as I wanted it to, but oh well. Alright, thermal right, we kind of want you facing this way with our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 heat pipes. Call that 5 direct contact heat pipes. Means the heat pipes make direct contact to the CPU. That's a 120 millimeter PWM addressable RGB fan. We're going to be mounting on one side here. If I had close, I would do it. Must be an older version of the board. Not the same version. That's the back. Give me a quick. All right, I need one thing. in case. Alright, let's get the case out. Go. I'm actually fairly impressed with this case. And there's some extras here as well. I believe this is a mesh front. It is. That's what we want to use instead of the glass. Then we have a mesh front, which I like a lot. Alright, so now we just need the hardware we got here. It looks like we do have an addressable RGB hub, which is going to help us a lot. Managed by the reset button. So this case by Cougar is actually very nice for the price. I think it was like 69 bucks. But we couldn't get the original X3 by Montech that we wanted. So we went with this one instead. And it is definitely not bad for the price. So we're going to need some studs out of the hardware. All right. So we got our USB 3 down here. Front panel header here. USB 1 here. HD audio and fan header there for fans. We just got to route some of these case cables into their respective locations. We're also going to need a fan splitter of some sort for this, or a fan hub, which I have available for this build. Oh. Okay. Now that whole debacle is finally figured out and sorted. We can move on to USB 3.0. HD audio, and then USB 2.0. Both of which we're going to shove through the board for aesthetic purposes. If we can get it there. And the USB 3.0 and our front panel connections, we're just going to run our normal route. That is much thicker cable that we don't want to run behind the board. Alright, trying to keep these cables as clean as possible. Especially in a white case. They're very, very noticeable. Alright, so now we got some power supply cable extension kit we could throw in here. Which is, you named it, white. Give it a little extra flavor. We're going to start with the CPU EPS cable. Do some cable combs. Keep these cables tamed up. Clean. There we go. We got some white cable going. White cable action. Then we'll do the 24 pin. A little bit bigger. We're going to do 3 cable combs on this one. cable combing 24 cables is a little bit more tedious. Takes a couple extra seconds. But the cable combs are well worth it. The aesthetics are just superb. The more and more I work with this case, the more and more I like it. It is very nice for the price. The holes are actually in the perfect locations as of right now. Everything just matches very nicely. Some weird black powder dust, maybe left over from the factory, but oh well. Alright, let's slap the graphics card in here. We went with a Gigabyte RX 6500 XT to match with the Gigabyte B550 motherboard. I'm going to peel the peel. Make sure we peel all the peels. Card in there and put a couple screws in. All right. Really, all we got to deal with is the power supply. But I mean, this thing's looking pretty badass, isn't it? Already did most of the cable management. So we're almost across the finish line here. Four screws holds it in. So I got a 24 pin. Then our CPU EPS up here, which is 8 pins. We'll run like so. We just need a couple of zip ties real quick. Actually, we want to save those for the thicker boys. That look nice and clean. Just trying to get this cleaned up as good as I can within reason. And also so that the back panel will close. Oh, getting tired. What is it, 2 o'clock in the morning? I actually predicted this. Not mean to be building this late. It is what it is. Had to get these done today. Looks nice. I approve of the cable management. Ready to fire this bad boy up. See what it looks like. And then call it a night. Well, finish them, then call it a night. Got a little bit more work to go on these. Oh, hello. Let's move that over here. Let's push that power button and see what she looks like. Very nice. And we got our post through Windows 10. We'll slap this bad boy in there. But overall, PC turned out absolutely stunning in white. And we'll have another happy gamer tomorrow. Hopefully they pick up tomorrow. Could have it ready to go tomorrow. So if anybody is ever interested in a custom build, feel free to reach out. But I am so tired. I'm going to call it a night. I'm done, guys. Thank you for joining us for the late night build stream. If you are interested in a build, feel free to reach out. We'll stream it. Hopefully not this late. This is not normal. This is me just trying to get shit done because the day got away. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you on the next build stream.